Yellow everything this time, you know what I'm talking about? Yellow rims, yellow big booty, yellow bones. Yellow lambs, yellow MPs, yellow watch, yellow charm ring chain.
Hello. Welcome. Week 6 Bud Ball Review. In the past, let's talk about it. I gave it to Big Dog Al, your boy, number one in the league this week, setting the weekly highs in a lot of categories and couldn't be stopped no matter who I played. Nick, a surprising yet dominant win over John. Tom ekes out a win versus Tim, just staves him off from getting that first one of the season. John Morant getting triple-double on Sunday evening to seal it. Sawyer's team just looking hella strong versus Jackson. And Chris getting a much-needed win from Drew. Let's go. Like I said, top tier matchup this week would have been between probably Tim and Tom, just because of the implications, or between me and Alec, just because typically our teams tend to fare fairly well. But let me tell you, some of the totals were close, and some of the totals were close throughout the week. But by Saturday, Sunday, team just wasn't going to let it happen. End up winning by over 50 points. When you can win both percentage categories, not saying it's a given every week, but it makes it so much easier to do everything else when you lock two of those up. Over 100 rebound different, almost 30 more assists. Swept the floor in steals and blocks. I was basically 5 turnovers away from having a 10-0 victory. Al's team, LeBron came back at the end of the week, so he's got that. Giannis isn't hurt. They just need time to gel and get their shit together, because right now he's sitting outside of a playoff spot. Plenty of time to get back in, but team is looking strong. MVP for the week for me is going to be Chef Curry. 14 threes, 80 points, 22 rebounds, 21 assists, and a double-double. I would have been 9-0 this week, and let me just remind the league, this is without LaMelo Ball. I'm doing all this without LaMelo. If he comes back, sheesh. That being said, I definitely wish I still would have kept Halliburton. We'll get to him later. Alec, on the other hand, would have been 0-8-1. Only would have tied Tim. 1-game losing streak for Alec. Record of 2-4-0 in 8th place, tied with Nick for 7th. I'm in 2nd place. 3-game winning streak. Record of 5-1-0. Nick versus John. Probably the most surprising matchup of the week, because Nick stomped John. It wasn't close. He stomped him. Set the highs this week in threes with 94 threes made, over 800 points scored. He's only 5 away from me for most points on the week. Took both the stock categories, took turnovers, which most teams are going to do versus John. Only 4 double-doubles to show for the week, but I think he had 3 or 4 players on his team hit 14 or more threes. 4 players on his team accounted for like 50 of his 94 threes. I think you got Trey, you got Kyrie, you got someone on Philly. I'm drawing a blank on the name, and then someone else. So Nick's team was looking good. Speaking of Trey, MVP for Nick. 10 threes made, 126 points scored, 36 assists, 2 double-doubles. Nick would have been 8-1 on the week, only would have lost to myself. 1-game winning streak, sitting at 2-4-0 in 7th place. Meanwhile, John, he drops from 3rd down to 4th place. Would have been 4-3-2, so kind of a unfortunate loss. Would have beaten almost half the league, but John would have did lose to Nick, would have lost to myself and Sawyer as well, and would have tied Tim and Jackson this week. 1-game losing streak for John, record of 4-2-0, tied with Tom for 3rd place. On to Tim and Tom. This one was close. Jokic is healthy, but Tim's still having some injury deficiencies. Tom, on the other hand, doesn't have Embiid, and I believe whoever his 2nd-round pick doesn't have them either. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but this one went down to the wire. Tim actually flipped the scales and was winning for part of Sunday, but Ja Morant gets the triple-double Sunday evening to get Tom that win. A much, I'm not going to say necessary win for Tom, because he's sitting at 4-2, but a big boost of confidence for the team. Ja's looking really strong this year. A lot of turnovers, but you got to take it with this style of game. MVP for time is going to be Ja. He shot 509 from the field, 84 points scored, 21 rebounds, 31 assists, 2 double-doubles, and a triple-double. Let's see, like Tom jumps up into third place, and actually Tom would have been 3-5-1 this week. Only would have beaten Tim, Alec, and Drew, and would have tied Chris. So kind of lucky that he got to play Tim. But a 3-game winning streak for Tom, record of 4-2-0, tied with John for third place and sitting in third. Meanwhile, Tim, unfortunately, still in last, would have been 1-4-4. Would have beaten Drew and would have tied Alec, John, Jackson, and Chris. 3-game losing streak for Tim. He got Pascal back today. Hopefully, good things are in the future for Tim. And Tom, by the way, gets Embiid back. I'm going to be playing him this week, but looks like he didn't get the notice till too late in the day and had to keep him in the IL spot. Jackson versus Sawyer. Sawyer's team looked awfully dominant this week. They did tie in three-pointers at 64 apiece, but Sawyer set the weekly highs in rebounds to 342 and assists with 230. The next closest person in assists was John with 183. So Sawyer's team putting up almost 50 more assists than the next closest guy. Sawyer also had 17 double-doubles, which is 2 away from tying the all-time record per week, and a triple-double to boot. His MVP is going to be Halliburton, and we'll get to his stats later because he's the number 1 ranked player of the week. Let's see. And I think Sawyer did all of this without less than 3 ad drops, or maybe no ad drops on the week. I can't remember now because I did this a while ago, but not needing to make any ad drops and setting highs on a lot of categories is pretty scary. Sawyer all alone in first place, 6-game win streak. Only would have lost to myself and Nick this week, 6-0-0. Meanwhile, Jackson would have been 4-3-2. Only would have lost to Sawyer, myself, and Nick, and would have tied John and Tim. Kind of unfortunate he had to play Sawyer, but a 2-game losing streak for Jackson. All by himself in 9th place, a record of 1-5-0. Finally, on to Chris and Drew. This is one of those matchups. Someone's got to win. Probably could have or should have ended in a tie. Not that any category is particularly close besides rebounds. I guess rebounds, threes. Actually, this probably should have ended in a tie. But Chris ends up coming out in the favor, winning both percentage categories, only losing by 1 3-pointer, but winning points, rebounds, assists, steals, and double-doubles. We're winning 7-3. Still continuing to ride the back of SGA. Dude shot 959 from the stripe. 123 points scored, 23 rebounds, 28 assists, 5 steals, and a double-doubles. Chris, you take your wins where you can get them and you move on. You just look to the future because that's all that matters. Chris also jumping up into a playoff spot, into 5th place. Would have only been 1-6-2 this week. Ends up playing the guy he would have beaten in Drew and would have tied Tim and Tom. And I got a mistake here. It says 3-game losing streak for Chris, but that's not right. I believe it's a 1-game winning streak. But a record of 3-3-0 into 5th place. Meanwhile, Drew drops down to 6th place. That tie earlier in the season is really saving your fucking butt. But Drew would have been 1-8. Only would have beaten Alec 1-game losing streak. I think I got you and Drew mixed up. Drew's 3-game losing streak. Chris is a 1-game win streak. But Drew record at 2-2-1 in that final playoff spot. Like I said, for Sawyer, Tyrese Halliburton's going to be the MVP of the week. Didn't blow out in points. He only scored 64 points. Didn't have a ton of threes. 17 rebounds, but 54 assists. I think he's leading the league in double-doubles. He had 7 steals, and there's a mistake right here. It says 2 double-doubles. He had 4 on the week. He had 1 in every game he played. Just really good stuff, and I'm already regretting not keeping him. But them's the breaks. Team's doing well without him. Sawyer's team's doing well with him. And that's that. Good matchups this week. We've got myself versus Tom, John versus Chris, Alec versus Drew, Nick versus Jackson, and Tim versus Sawyer. That's all I got, boys. See ya.